Yeah. Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake and the Doc back at you for Week 10 injuries. Show us your teams and some mailbag. And yes, you can see it. The Doc has the bag on because somebody, not going to mention any names here, somebody's team performed pretty well against you in the Dynasty League last week, and I kind of worked you. Therefore, you're in a bag today, right?
It is what it is, Jake.
At least you were able to reuse the bag from the last time that I beat down your team.
This is a Headliner Nation classic.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, Jake, if you would like to be the owner, or anyone from Headliner Nation would like to be the owner of their own exclusive Dr. Loser bag, I think we should start selling them. Let me know. I'll sign a Dr. Loser bag, and let us see the worst fantasy player you know in a Dr. Loser bag.
Yeah, maybe that's some punishments, right? You got to walk around with a Dr. Loser bag on your head. I mean,
that's right.
The OGs know what we're talking about. All right, but Ethan, we got once again a butt ton of injuries to cover. I mean, one of these episodes, they got to be short one of these days, but I just don't see this being one of it. So, like we always say, there's timestamps down below for all these players, all the segments of the show. Catch what you need to, and then obviously I know you probably don't have an hour to sit and watch the entire thing, but if you do, that's cool. I mean, we enjoy when you do that, when you hang out with us for a while. But Ethan, the first thing we're going to start out here, obviously, is injury reports. And I have your notes over here. I mean, it's got a scroll bar on it, which is never a good thing because that just means that there's like pages worth. I hope you're hydrated because you have a lot of players to cover here. So take a drink of water if you need one. You probably don't even have one sitting there. But we're going to start off here with the injury report. But we have no moments of silence. So silver lining, nobody that we're going to involve in a moment of silence this week, right?
That's right. Luckily, no season-ending injuries that we know of. We'll talk about maybe one possibly, but that's not related to the injury as far as other things going on. But let's start, Jake, with the guys that we just got to get out of here. We got a couple guys that we know are not going to play this week for sure. We got Chase Edmonds. He's dealing with a high ankle sprain. So normal recovery for a grade 2 high ankle sprain is about 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes even longer. But statistically, the problem with high ankle sprains with running backs is when they come back, you're expecting on average a 20% drop in production compared to their pre-injury production for the rest of the season. So they are never quite the same after they have these high ankle sprains, running backs that is. And so Chase Edmonds, probably droppable, especially if they put him on IR. Probably droppable. If you can't stash him in IR, I'm not really holding on to him and burning up a bench spot for a guy that's probably not going to give me anything rest of the season.
Yeah, because by the time you get him back, you're in like the critical games of the fantasy season, either trying to get into the playoffs or in the playoffs, and that's kind of a hard time to take that gamble right there. All right, so now a lot of guys actually, to talk about here for Week 10. Let's start it off with the dudes who throw balls to open people for a living, the quarterbacks.
Yeah, first up, biggest name probably on the entire list, honestly, is Kyler Murray. He's dealing with an eversion ankle sprain that he had late in Week 8. So eversion ankle sprain is a little bit different. Your normal ankle sprain is an inversion sprain where the ankle actually turns inside and you kind of fall, to the outside. The problem with an eversion sprain is they're a lot more likely to take longer to heal, and they're just not as common. So we don't have as much data in terms of bracing them and getting them back on the field quickly. He hasn't practiced yet. But it does appear that he is making some progress. He seems pretty confident that he'll play this week. I think he's going to be a game time decision, and I don't think that he's probably going to be ready this week to return. So if you're banking on Kyler Murray, you need to wait another week, most likely. If he does play, he's still startable, but just don't expect him to run as much as he normally would.
Yeah, you're going to lose a lot of that rushing upside if he's not as mobile.
Yeah, next up, we got Aaron Rodgers. He was dealing with COVID last week. He doesn't technically get officially cleared until Saturday, but he has commented a lot the last 2 weeks. The guy loves to hear himself talk, and he expects to play. So I'm still firing up Aaron Rodgers if he's playing, regardless of what he says on Pat McAfee's shows. Next up, we got.
We like to talk, though, too. We like to hear ourselves talk. This is what we do. We're talking right now. Literally, you're talking for like 30 minutes straight, and you're complaining about somebody else who likes to talk?
Jake, I don't like it. Do I need to pull the bag back out? Because you're making me feel horrible.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Next up, we got Trevor Lawrence. He's dealing with an ankle sprain that he had last week. He did manage to return to this game last week. He should play this week, but again, the ankle's not going to be 100%. It's just worth knowing in case you're starting him as your QB2 and you have another option that's a little bit healthier. Don't be afraid to sit Trevor Lawrence this week while he's mending up on that ankle. And then last quarterback here we need to talk about is Sam Darnold. Now, he's dealing with a shoulder sprain, and he's probably the one that I'm the most concerned about long-term because the team did sign Cam Newton this week, and they've already basically said that PJ Walker is expecting to start on Sunday. And so I think we're pretty safe to assume that Sam Darnold is not playing this week. The question is, does he ever get this starting job back? I am concerned just given with the amount of money that they're paying Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like we're going to see Sam Darnold as a starter unless something happens to Newton. So it was fun while it lasted for about 3 weeks. And now Sam Darnold is once again going to the fantasy graveyard.
Do you remember when he was leading the league in rushing touchdowns just a few weeks ago?
It was nice. It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times.
Worst of times, yeah. I mean, how drastically it has fallen off here. And yeah, for the amount of money they're paying Cam Newton, I think they expect him to play. So that's definitely something we'll pay attention to here in the coming weeks. Now we head over to the dudes that catch these balls from these quarterbacks. Ethan, what about some wide receivers?
Yeah, first up we got Chase Claypool. He's dealing with a toe sprain. I'm pretty sure it's turf toe, but they haven't officially called it that. With a turf toe injury, usually a grade 1 injury, which is what I think he's dealing with, results in about a 1 to 2 week absence. But if it's a grade 2, the timeline gets extended out to closer to 4, 5, 6 weeks. Regardless of what happens with Claypool, it doesn't sound like he's going to play this week, but they haven't officially ruled him out yet. Pat Freiermuth appears to be the best benefactor in terms of opportunities here. They're looking for him in the red zone a lot. Obviously, Deontay Johnson's going to continue to get a ton of targets. We'll see if those targets are any good with Big Ben being trash garbage.
Wow, that's something for you to say that as a Steelers fan.
It is, but we still find ways to win, even if it takes the refs helping us. We'll take it, though.
They have their hip checking people.
Well, we won't comment on that. But let's just say that we'll take a win where we can get one.
Perfect.
Next up, we got Jarvis Landry. He's dealing with knee and foot injuries. He didn't practice Wednesday, returned Thursday. I'm expecting him to play, but if for some reason he's a late scratch, Donovan Peoples-Jones appears to be the next guy up. There's no OBJ, so now it's up to DPJ to be the guy if Jarvis Landry misses some time, and I think he is a strong start if Jarvis is out for sure.
Perfect.
Next up, we got Amari Cooper. He's dealing with a hamstring strain. He's been managing this kind of for the last month or so. He always seems to play, so unless we see a change in his practice schedule, it's unlikely that he misses this week. Still, with hamstring strains, they're incredibly volatile. There's always the risk that he starts and then re-injures it while he's playing. And so Amari Cooper, you're probably having to start him in most leagues right now. But just know that he is going to put a ton of risk on your team. So if you're thinking about DFS, just know he carries that risk. Next, we got two guys, same team, dealing with very similar injuries, Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown. They're both dealing with like foot/ankle injuries. With Godwin, he hasn't practiced yet this week. And this was one that, was kind of something that popped up on the injury report. We didn't really hear about it much last week. He is dealing with this foot injury and he's not practicing. Normally with foot injuries, I always assume that the guys are going to miss some time just because it's really hard to recover from them. It's hard to rehab them. It's just really hard to get the foot healed quickly. And so it sounds like Chris Godwin is not going to play this week. Antonio Brown, he did finally get cleared from a walking boot that he's been dealing with for 3 weeks. This was initially reported as an ankle injury, but it seems odd that he was in a walking boot for that long. Normally a walking boot for a week minimum with an ankle injury, and then they start to kind of ramp up their activity, take them out of the boot. This makes me question if it was ever actually an ankle injury with Antonio Brown. It makes me wonder if maybe he was dealing with some type of midfoot sprain or a sprain actually in the foot. And so it does seem like he's starting to get back ramped up in activity, but it doesn't look like he's going to play either. So Mike Evans is going to be a total smash play this week.
100%. Maybe even some Tyler Johnson this week.
Maybe. I don't mind it. Washington is, I believe, the second worst team against the pass. And so they give up a ton of points to wide receivers.
Buttload. Total buttload.
Just a buttload.
That's right.
Just so many. So next up, we got DeAndre Hopkins. He's dealing with a hamstring strain as well. He was a late scratch last week. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday this week. Doesn't sound like he's going to be ready to play this week, but DeAndre Hopkins doesn't like to miss games. So I'd be very surprised if he misses 2 in a row here. But I'm not feeling good about this one, Jake. I really do feel like this is something that he tried to recover from quickly, and now he's re-injured it, and it's worse this time. So don't be surprised if DeAndre Hopkins is another, missing another game here. Last up for the wide receivers, got Keenan Allen. He didn't practice on Wednesday, but he did return on Thursday. This doesn't really seem like something that's, going to cause him to miss games, but it's just worth knowing that Keenan Allen is a little banged up in case you're kind of on the fence about starting him. Maybe you got 2 guys that are kind of both in the same type of tier. Maybe you lean more towards the healthier guy as opposed to putting Keenan Allen in, on a knee that's less than 100%.
Now we're going to talk about my favorite position, Ethan. I mean, these guys have a very soft spot in my heart because these guys, for a living, they get to grab their balls, hold them as tight as they can to their body, and run through the biggest holes they can find. I mean, sounds like a dream come true, Ethan. So let's talk about some running backs.
You know that never is comfortable for me to segue off of, but I'm going to do my best here. Okay. We're going to start with my boy Najee Harris. He's dealing with the foot sprain. This one's concerning because he was a full participant on Wednesday and then got downgraded to a limited participation on Thursday. So you don't want to see that when we're talking about RB1s. We don't want to see them get hurt. You don't really want to see anybody get hurt midweek, but you definitely don't want to see them getting less practice time as the week goes on. It's possible that this is just some soreness. They're just being careful with it, but it's worth keeping an eye on as we head into the weekend, just because we know that these foot injuries can turn south in a hurry. He could be a late scratch, so just kind of keep an eye on him as we go into Sunday. Next up, we got Miles Sanders. This one's kind of interesting because he was placed on IR for an MCL sprain after week 7. And he came out this week and was kind of like, yeah, I'm back. Everyone's starting to get riled up on the internet saying, yeah, Miles Sanders is coming back. We're going to play him. The problem is that he's not technically able to come back until week 11. So even though he's saying that he's back and people are saying that, oh, he's saying he's back, he must be back. Like, guys, you got to listen to the rules here. He was placed on IR. He has to miss until week 11. So don't put Miles Sanders in your lineup. Just know that it does sound like he'll be ready next week. Next up, we got James Robinson. He's dealing with a heel bruise. Didn't practice Wednesday, but did get eliminated in session on Thursday. That's good to see because, again, he's dealing with a bruise. So it's mostly a pain management issue. We knew he wasn't going to probably play last week, but this week it looks like he's at least on track to potentially make it a game time decision. I'm not going to say that he's going to play. Probably still a long shot. I'd say there's more likely chance that he doesn't play, but we know he's getting healthier, and that's good for James Robinson owners. Next up, we got Damien Harris. He's dealing with a concussion. He hasn't practiced Wednesday or Thursday. Normally, when we're talking about concussion, return to play in a week, you want to see them get some type of limited work in on Thursday. So it's likely that he's still dealing with some symptoms to this. It's not a normal timeline for getting back in just a week, which we've seen often this year. So I think there's still time for him to get cleared, but it's unlikely that we see Damien Harris this week unless we see some type of practice either Friday or Saturday. Next, we got Zeke Elliott. He's dealing with a knee sprain. He kind of left the game last week. Everyone was really concerned that this was something major. But then he did come back into the game. The offense as a whole was really bad last week. So it doesn't seem like Ezekiel Ellis is going to miss this week. If he plays, he's pretty much a must start. You have to play Zeke if he's healthy enough to play. We got another one here, probably the second biggest name on this list for the day, Alvin Kamara. He hasn't practiced yet this week, and it sounds like he's dealing with a knee sprain, but based on the video that I watched, I would guess that this is an MCL sprain to get it a little bit more specific, and I'd probably guess that this was more of a grade 1 sprain just based on the video. There's a good chance that he misses this week, possibly next week as well. Normal return to play for an MCL sprain, even a grade 1, is about 2 to 4 weeks. So we've seen this before, even with Miles Sanders. So it's good that they're not putting him, on the IR. So we're not going to have a Miles Sanders situation where he's ready, but they can't, technically bring him back yet. But it is worth knowing that Alvin Kamara is probably going to miss this week. Next up, we got Nick Chubb. He tested positive for COVID earlier this week. I know this one's going to hurt Jake. Look at him get all sad. Oh, sad Jake. The good news, Jake, is that Nick Chubb is vaccinated, so there is a chance that he gets cleared in time. He only has to test positive, or has to test negative twice within a 24-hour period to be able to play. The problem is that so far this year, we've almost never seen this happen, where a player actually tests positive, has the virus, and manages to return prior to the game that week. So super unlikely we see Nick Chubb this week. Dearness Johnson is expected to start if Chubb misses. And Dearness Johnson is probably being kept far, far away from Nick Chubb because he is testing negative so far. So as long as he doesn't test positive later in the week, we can expect Johnson to play. So not looking good for Nick Chubb. Next up, we got Zach Moss. He's dealing with a concussion. Now, unlike Damien Harris, he is following the normal timeline of what we would expect for a player to return in just a week. He didn't practice on Wednesday, but he did get a limited session in with a non-contact jersey on Thursday. That typically means that he's on track to play, but again, he has to be totally cleared from concussion protocol before that happens. He's still in a committee, so I'm not really loving him as a starter, but at a minimum, he's going to be able to play, most likely. Last up for the running backs, we got Antonio Gibson. He's dealing with a stress fracture in his shin. This one's concerning because he's got a limited practice in on Wednesday, but he's coming out of the bye week. And so I would have expected him to practice in full coming out of the bye week. It is concerning that this shin is still bothering him. And honestly, you can tell just by how bad his production has been in the last month. I hate to say this, but he's probably a sit for me this week. I don't think that he's going to do well against his Tampa Bay defense. And even if he's playing, I think that he's a really risky start. This seems like a J.D. McKissic game if I've ever seen one.
Now, if you had to choose between Devin Singletary and Antonio Gibson, who do you choose?
I probably choose Gibson only because of the touchdown potential, and Gibson's still going to get some carries.
Yep.
I don't.
You don't love it. I don't love it either. I dropped him way down on my ranking show here the other day, and I said it kind of just comes a point based off of the options you have on your roster. At what point are you willing to take that gamble? I'm not going to play him as like a stud, option here this week, but if I'm having to rely on him or Singletary or Moss or somebody else, I'll just gamble and go with Gibson. What about some tight ends, the football kind?
Yeah, first up, we got Rob Gronkowski. He's dealing with some type of back injury. It could be a strain, could be muscle spasms, could be a contusion. We don't really know. We just know it is his back. He hasn't practiced yet this week. And with Gronk, anytime you hear back, that is going to raise up major red flags because he has a long, long history of back surgeries and back injuries. So I think the team's going to spend some time, going to get him healthy, hopefully for a postseason run here. And so timeline-wise, I don't really know. It's kind of a TBD. We don't know for sure what his timeline is going to look like because he has this history. How much are they going to let him rest? I'm going to guess he's going to miss at least this week and probably a few more weeks after this. So Gronkowski not looking like the best tight end if you're heading into the fantasy playoffs, especially if he can't get any practices in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's one of those things too. Like maybe it is kind of like a rest on purpose. Let's keep him, super healthy, super fresh get him going, a couple weeks before the playoffs, and then just run him with everything he's got.
Yeah, and a team like the Broncos. What the heck am I thinking?
Bucking Broncos? Is that what you're thinking?
Bucking Broncos.
That's what I think you're talking
about. A team like the Buccaneers. Gosh, I almost did it again. They can afford to do this with a guy like Rob Gronkowski. They don't need him to start every week to make the playoffs. They only need him, when the games really truly matter. So, last up with the tight ends, we got Jonnu Smith. He's dealing with a shoulder sprain. He got a limited practice on Wednesday. He only played 28 snaps last week, which is really concerning. He's been banged up for a couple weeks now. It's unlikely that we see him get any kind of significant opportunities this week, even if he does play. So I'm probably sitting Jonnu Smith where I have the luxury to. It does favor Hunter Henry a little bit more, but again, neither one of those guys has really shown to be a fantasy stud this year, which is, I guess, disappointing because that's what the Patriots spent all their money on.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. All right, now we do have a few guys that you're saying there's a chance that we see this week. A welcome sight for sore eyes for a few of these guys that could help out some fantasy rosters. Who are they?
Yeah, quite a good collection of players that are quite good.
Yeah, you're struggling right now.
I'm sorry, Jake.
Quite a good bunking Broncos out there.
Bucking Broncos, quite a good. This is rough, okay? Let's talk about Chris Carson first. He was designated to return to practice. He's been dealing with this chronic neck issue. Doesn't seem like Chris Carson's going to play this week, but it is a good sign that they designated him to return. He's been managing this chronic neck issue for almost all this entire season. And it's just one of those things that even if he returns, the likelihood that he re-injures it or it flares up again on him is really high. And so if he manages to return and play well, I might be trying to flip him in leagues that haven't had a trade deadline come up yet, just because I don't know if you want to trust him week to week to give you solid fantasy numbers. Right. Another guy coming off that a lot of people are going to be happy at. Geez, I am struggling. Just put me on the struggle bus. Send me to Struggleville. Wow. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Let's talk about him. He was designated to return as well. He's dealing with an MCL sprain that he had back in October. He has been practicing this week. He seems pretty close to returning. If I had to guess, it's this week. But if it's not this week, it's for sure next week for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We got two tight ends here. Dawson Knox. He's been practicing this week after missing about 3 weeks with a broken hand. I know this is Kyle's boy, so he's probably thrilled to see Dawson Knox come back. It does look like Knox is on track to return this week, so tight end is getting a little bit of help. Maybe he was dropped. You have Rob Gronkowski. Maybe you pick him up if you can, if he was dropped. Another guy that could have probably been dropped is Logan Thomas. He was also designated to return. He's been practicing a limited capacity. He's still complaining a little bit of soreness in his hamstring, which put him on the IR. So it's not likely that he returns this week to full game action, but he is worth a pickup with the expectation that, if he doesn't play this week, he's really close to returning. So Logan Thomas, if you need tight end help, go check your waiver wires for him. Last up is the wide receiver 3 for the Cowboys, Michael Gallup. He had a calf strain in week 1, has not played since. He was activated to return off IR. He is expected for sure to play this week. I'm hoping that his presence is what the Cowboys need to turn back into a juggernaut. I don't know if it's enough, but I'm hoping because we need this Cowboys offense to be good for a whole bunch of fantasy players. So Michael Gallup is expected to return. I don't know if I'm starting him necessarily, but it's good to know that he's back and healthy.
Yep, exactly. I think it helps the overall offense probably more than that one individual player in fantasy football. But all right, there we have it. It's like 20 plus minutes on injuries, Ethan. We really got to work on shortening this list up.
Hey, I'm doing my talk to the NFL. They're the ones that keep getting hurt.
All right, well, perfect. Now that we've ended all the doom and gloom, it's time to have a little bit of fun, and it's time for you to show us your teams. And Ethan, we got a couple good ones this week. Now, we had a couple people that resubmitted from last week. Because I said last week, and I'll say this every week, if we don't pick your team, resubmit it next week when we drop that tweet out there, because I would love to include 15 of these, but the show would be 6 hours long, and Ethan is already struggling. If I keep him here any later at night, he's going to be asleep. So let's go ahead and kick it off here, Ethan, with the first one. This is it looks like from Buzz Lightyear, at Broyt's Damien is his name. He's got Let's Get Funky here. It looks like, are those like purple pigs? I don't really know. I don't know what they are. They're
hard to say.
Yeah, they're like purple circles with horns. I'm not exactly for sure. He says he's in 5th place at 4-5. It's a 10-man half PPR. And here's his current starting lineup, Ethan. He's got Cousins, JT, Eckler, Debo, A.J. Brown, Dalton Schultz, Darrell Henderson, Greg Joseph, and the Browns defense. On his bench, he's got Jerry Jeudy, T.J. Hawkinson, Antonio Brown, Carson Wentz, Odell Beckham of now the Los Angeles Rams, and Adrian Peterson. It also has Calvin Ridley. What are you thinking overall here about Let's Get Funky?
I think the team is okay.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that he's 4-5.
That's what I was going to say. Seeing these names, I would have expected to be better.
You know, I mean, Jonathan Taylor and Debo, they've had multiple week winning, performances between the two of them, and I'm sure that if we looked at it, they've had games where they both hit for huge games. So
Kirk Cousins and Carson Wentz have been 2 solid starting quarterbacks as well.
Yeah.
Austin Eckler's put up some big games. There's some solid. TJ Hawkinson has. I'm kind of surprised at the 4-5 record.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised. And maybe he had Hawkinson on his bench because he tried Smith this last week when he was on bye, but obviously you want to be starting Hawkinson where you can. I would have him over Dalton Schultz for sure. Rest of the team, though, I think he's probably playing the guys I'd be playing.
Yeah, some of the big trades he's had. Sounds like he traded Kelsey for Jonathan Taylor and Hawkinson.
That's a steal.
Whoever made that trade with you is a complete fantasy idiot because you totally won that trade. Then it looks like you had Amari Cooper and Damien Harris, which you got Debo Samuel there. Because Debo's been playing well, it's worked out for you. That was a lot to give up probably at that time. And then you had CEH and Pitts, and you traded him for Darrell Henderson. First off, why the hell did you have Kyle Pitts and Travis Kelce? It worked out in the end for your overall team, but you went a little tight end heavy. I'm thinking right here, Broyt's Damien, that you got a thing for the tight end position.
Yeah, he might have a little bit of a tight end fetish.
Fetish? Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking.
A little tight end fetish here.
A lot of tight ends. To still end up with that team, though, overall, like you said, I'm not making any big trades. You've already made a lot of it. You have a solid roster, some big name guys, some high ceilings, some safe floors. I just keep rolling with it and hope that it turns around because that's not a very funky lineup. That's a pretty good lineup.
Yeah,
all right.
I agree.
All right, let's go on to the next one. This one is from Logan.
Oh, this is so fancy.
Logan has Pac-Man, and it really drew my attention that it looks like he drew it. I'm going to guess he's like doing some construction work. So he's building something. He is definitely a working man, and I wanted to make sure that I rewarded him by putting him into this episode because he straight up sat right there on the workbench and sent this picture. Now he's currently 2-6, which is not good, Ethan. That is not a good record.
No.
However, dude has scored the most points in his league at 1,138.
Oh, so man, this is what we call bad luck.
Worst luck in history of fantasy football right here. All right, let's look at the lineup. You got Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Like it. Devontae Adams and Michael Pittman.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Najee and Mixon.
Ooh.
Okay. Travis Kelce.
Ooh.
He's been good at times. Mike Williams struggled as of late, but started off super hot. Don't really care about the kickers or the defense. The defense, though, with the Rams, now you got, Von Miller in the mix there, so that's an improvement. I like how he did the hashtag in a separate piece of torn paper, Ethan, and he used 2 different color fonts to distinguish both words, that's next level.
Nice.
That's
nice
next
touch.
level. That shows that's a high IQ play right there. On his bench, he's got Jalen Hurts, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, Elijah Mitchell, Chuba Hubbard, and dude's got Cordero Patterson on his bench. First thing you got to do, Logan, take a break, put the saw down, put away the wood glue or the router or whatever the hell it is you're doing out there on this construction area, and go put Cordero Patterson in your lineup right now for Mike Williams, and don't even think about it. Don't even just pause this video, Logan. You can come back and hear your name again here in a second, but pause it and go fix your damn lineup right now. Dude's got to be in there.
Yeah, that's yeah. And I like Mike Williams, but Cordell Patterson has to just basically bulldoze his way onto every fantasy lineup this year. I mean, at first I was kind of a little like, I don't know what do you do with Cordell Patterson? But eventually you just get beat over the head with the guy enough that you have to just play him. I mean,
and especially once they lost Calvin Ridley. I mean, it's just more added volume his way.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to play him. I mean, he's basically their wide receiver 1. I mean,
pretty much. Yeah.
RB 1.
I
mean, like that's what we're dealing with here. So, you have to play him.
I mean, I don't know if your league trade deadline has passed or not either, but I mean, you got some solid options here. That, I mean, maybe you can get away with trading a wide receiver potentially, and or seeing what you can get in return, because I mean, you're pretty stacked overall.
Yeah, I would be potentially looking at moving a Judy or a Waddle with Mitchell to try to upgrade to either a better wide receiver that you could fill in for, Pittman.
Yep.
Or, potentially a better running back that you could put in your flex. I mean, really, running back wise, you're pretty stacked. I mean, Harris, Mixon, they're both healthy this year for the most part. Patterson's healthy. You got a lot of flexibility at running back. Your tight end's locked up. You're never going to replace Travis Kelce unless there's a fire and something major happens to him. I mean, do you look for another quarterback? You've got Hurts on the bench. You've got Herbert. I'm not really concerned about either of those two. So I guess wide receiver 2 is and wide receiver 3 or flex is really the only spot where I feel like, man, you could upgrade a little bit. But man, you're first in the league in points scored. I mean, this is one where I'm probably riding it out.
Yeah, I mean, you're not struggling in the points department, and that's how you win fantasy. You just had some very bad luck, and the first thing you can do to help fix that is to put in Cordero Patterson. Yes. Quick question though: are these not, in my opinion, maybe the coolest bubble letters I've ever seen on a submission here this year? They're different, but they're cool.
They're very fancy.
Yeah, they look like they all match. You know what I mean? You can't tell that it's just like somebody struggling making bubble letters. Like they're all identical. The
pretty
R's, they look the
bubbles.
Same. Yeah, I mean they are solid bubble letters. What do you think of the Devontae Adams drawing at the top?
Really good. I was really impressed.
So was I. I saw it and I was like, wow.
It's so simple though. Like I feel like looking at it, like I know I'm horrible at drawing. I could never do it. But looking at it, it looks like something that you could learn how to do very quickly. Yep. But it's so clearly him, but in a very simple way that I might have to take some notes on how to draw that.
Well done, Logan. Logan, your art skills are great. You're probably building something good there in the shop. I can tell. Overall, solid team. You've had some bad luck, but stick with it. I think you're in pretty good shape as far as your overall roster goes. Next one, Anthony Sulpizio. Sulpizio. He's looking for some pasta. He's got tanks for nothing, and right off the bat, Anthony, it's the worst damn tank I've ever seen.
That's a sad tank.
It's a
sad team, but it's a really sad tank.
I mean, your team is 1-8. Your tank is 0-9 right now because the tank is just not cutting it. I applaud the effort. It looks like it's Chubb has gone 6 to midnight there at the end. Like it's an excited tank. It looks like it's pointing due north right now.
That could be a tank, could be a teapot. Hard to say.
Yeah. All right. Let's I guess look at the roster because it's 1-8, so he needs some help. He's got Patrick Mahomes. Okay, that's been a struggle here as of late.
That's probably where this all went downhill.
Probably you drafted Patrick Mahomes way too early, and it hurt your overall lineup.
Yes.
At wide receiver, you have Robert Woods and Brandon Ayuk. Oh, dear God.
Very boom bust.
Yeah, and now you got Robert Woods, who's going to have to contend with OBJ in LA.
Which is more bust than boom.
Yeah. Brandon Ayuk has been way more bust than boom. Oh, dear God. Your running backs are J.D. McKissick and Melvin Gordon. Who the hell drafted your team, Anthony?
I'm just curious, like, is this a dynasty team? Like, the bench isn't very big, which makes me think this is redraft. Like, where are you? Where are all the running backs? I mean, I get that you have David Montgomery. He was on IR. Now he's on a bye. Or I guess he was on a bye. Is he on a bye this week? Yeah, they're on a bye this week, right?
Yeah.
So,
but you don't have anything anywhere.
But there's no other. I mean, what?
Who is his first round pick, Ethan?
Did you take Patrick Mahomes with your first 5 picks? Like, what happened?
I can't find a first or second round pick on this roster.
Who is the second rounder on this team? Montgomery? Like, why do you have Matt Ryan on your team if you have Pat Mahomes?
Yeah, I mean, I am so confused.
I'm flat. And the roster is so big, and there's just no players. Like,
yeah, Anthony, I think what we need to do here is you need to send me an email, Anthony, because you more than anybody need a draft guide in 2022, my friend. So we
need to hook him up.
We're gonna hook him up with a draft guide because you can't go through another year like this, Anthony.
We can't have this.
This is
can't
unacceptable.
Have this on the channel.
Yeah, this is unacceptable right now.
This isn't a good look for. You know what, Jake? I think that we will take partial responsibility.
I will not take responsibility for this.
We will take partial responsibility for none of this because there's no way. He must have just found us. We need to get him a draft guide.
We're going to get him a draft guide for next year. I think everybody would agree that Anthony Sulpizio needs a draft guide for next year so we can hook you up, Anthony, because the team overall is not great. We're looking at just this week. Mark Ingram needs to be in your lineup more than likely. Especially if Alvin Kamara does not play. He is definitely a much better option here this week. As for Tyler Conklin, probably just keep Hunter Henry there. You got Mahomes. You drafted Mahomes. It sounds like you invested a first round, second round, and third round pick in Patrick Mahomes, it sounds like. So he's probably going to remain your starting lineup. Dave Montgomery not playing. Darnell Mooney not playing. So Mark Ingram, at this point, I'm probably going to put Cortland Sutton in for Brandon Ayuk and put Mark Ingram at my flex. But I don't like it. I don't feel good about it.
Are you taking Ayuk out? Is that what you're saying? You're taking Ayuk out? Yeah, that's probably where I would go.
I take Ayuk out, put Sutton up at wide receiver, and then put Mark Ingram in at the flex.
Man, this is just hard to look at.
Yeah, Anthony, you have our condolences.
Dude, this is rough. This is a rough team.
It is bad.
Sorry, man. That sucks.
I feel bad for making fun of his tank because I hadn't read the roster before that. And now I feel like we just trashed Anthony. Anthony, we got nothing but love for you, Anthony. We're going to hook you up with a free draft guide for 2022. Just hook me up with an email down below there in the comment section or find me on Twitter. Tag me on Twitter, Anthony. I mean, you obviously know where we're at. So find me on Twitter and I'll hook you up that way. All right. Next one. And this one's going to be hard to read, Ethan. It's going to be hard, but I cropped it this way on purpose because that cat is creepy as hell in the background, and it is staring directly into my soul. And I felt like if I cut the cat out of the picture, I would be haunted for like weeks. So the cat stays.
Jake.
What?
I think the cat is sitting
on
the Dr. Loser bag.
Is he sitting on a Dr. Loser bag? He looks like he's sitting on something brown.
How did he get? You think that cat's in my house?
Is this your team?
No. No. But also, that cat looks like he's in my house. I'm terrified.
Do you have upholstery like that? I don't know if that's like a couch or a chair. Or
it
carpet
does kind of look like my couch.
Wow. Anyway.
Or the rug.
I would like to have, like I said, cut the cat out so I could expand the roster a little bit because it's kind of hard to read it, especially for you guys watching at home, but we'll read it all off. But the cat had to stay because I was like, that damn thing is going to haunt me. So we got Doug Gorillas as this team. What do you think about that team name right off the cuff? You like that or no?
Not good, but
Not good. No.
You know, it's not as scary as the cat. So
yeah, the cat's still the scariest thing in this picture. Your lineup: Kyler Murray. Make sure you have another option. Does he have another option on the bench?
Cousins.
Perfect. You're good to go.
They're not on bye, are they?
No, they're not.
Okay,
at running back, you have Joe Mixon, and damn it, Josh showed it, and he knows what to do. He started Cordero Patterson. Cordero Patterson not on his bench. Josh is like, hell yeah, get into my lineup. So he's got Cordero Patterson.
Yep.
At wide receiver, he had Devontae Adams and DK Metcalf, and then he kind of squeezed in a Chris Godwin in between. So I don't know if he's starting 3 wide receivers.
It looks like he is.
If he is, he's going to have another backup plan for Chris Godwin. Does he have anybody down there? Looks like it could be maybe a Donovan Peoples-Jones, right? So as a wide receiver 3, I don't hate that this week. He has Darnell Mooney as his flex. Get him out because he ain't playing. He's on bye. So you don't have him.
So you're hoping you put Gaskin in, I guess?
You're hoping that you had Gaskin. I mean, looking at his production, which I don't think he's done much of anything tonight, I'd probably be better off not starting anybody. At this point, Myles Gaskin has 9 attempts for 10 yards, 1 reception for 14.
So what you're doing instead is you're throwing Godwin into that spot if you haven't already, and you're praying that Godwin plays.
No, you know what I just noticed? It says full PPR, only 4 bench spots. So it cut off the last name. And that's not, I mean, that's all that's in the picture. I see a J-E at the end.
Here's what I'm thinking. Jeff Wilson.
I'm thinking Jerry Jeudy.
Oh, that makes way more sense. I would pick Jerry Jeudy. I'm hoping it's Jerry Jeudy.
Me too. I'm hoping it's Jerry Jeudy, and you can throw him in at your flex right there. And then you have Donovan Peoples-Jones for Godwin just in case. You have Cousins for Kyler Murray just in case.
Yes, this is the way.
This is the way, exactly. The cat is not the way right now, though. The cat, I feel like I can't even make eye contact with that cat.
You know, I'm not sure who looks more disappointed in me, you or that cat.
Yeah, exactly. Is this a good time to say I'm allergic to cats?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you got dogs.
I got dogs. Yeah, I got dogs. I'm allergic to cats. Always have been. My eyes swell shut. My throat gets all itchy. Yeah, total allergic reaction. So, no cats for me. But Josh, overall, you set yourself up that even though you may have some injuries, you got some good options to put in their place. Hopefully that's Jerry Jeudy and not Jeff Wilson. He says he's 3-6, but you got some good names. If you can get healthy, you should be good there. Josh, appreciate you. Next up, last one we're doing here today, I believe, for Show Us Your Teams. Yep. This is Matt Hanan. He's got Catch 22 as his team name. How do you like that one? You like that one? Is that any better?
Yeah, it's all right.
It's okay because he has Christian McCaffrey, right?
Yes.
I mean,
that makes a big difference.
That makes a big difference because, I mean, he's got it in the Carolina blue coloring. He's got McCaffrey there. I'm trying to see. He's got like a timeline of events, it looks like, at the top here. Week 1 was a loss. Week 2 was a loss. 3 and 4 were wins. And then he went loss, win, win. So he's on a 2-game winning streak here.
Yeah, so he's what, 5-4?
I don't know. That's a lot of math. I didn't add it as I was going. Let's see. 1.
Yeah, I'm seeing 4 losses.
3.
4 losses?
4, 5. Yep, so 5-4. He's got Josh Allen. Sucked it up last week. Bill's been playing pretty horrible against some crappy opponents here the past couple of weeks. Hopefully he can turn it around here this week. Christian McCaffrey and Najee Harris. Please play Najee. Hopefully he's not dealing with anything serious when we talked about him earlier. You got Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson, TJ Hawkinson, Amari Cooper. I can't tell you who the hell you have at kicker or defense because that is the lightest yellow highlighter I've ever seen.
Looks like Matt Gay and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
I'll go with it.
I got
Sounds
you,
good.
boy.
Sounds good. On his bench, he's got Dallas Goedert, Myles Gaskin, Darrell Williams, Devontae Smith, Alexander Madison, and Darnell Mooney. And then he's got his injured reserve, Derrick Henry, and CEH. So at least he'll be getting back CEH in a week or so. He's scored the second most points. He's had the most points in the league scored against him. Currently in 4th place. This is a standard scoring league. A 12-team league standard scoring.
Ooh.
That changes things a little bit. But honestly, looking at the overall roster, You don't have another option at quarterback. You're leaving him. You're leaving in Hawkinson. No other options there. You're not going to sit McCaffrey, Harris, Diggs, or Deontay Johnson, like, ever. No. So, I mean, honestly, it's really down to Amari Cooper. Is he the best option? And looking at the bench, I think he is. So I'm pretty sure that the lineup you have set is the way that you're going to go and the best option you have here for Week 10.
Yeah, who are you dropping off of his bench to bring CEH back?
It's a great question. Right off the top of my head, I'm probably going Mooney.
That's who I was kind of eyeballing, but I would, man, I hate to drop Gaskin, but at the same time, I don't know. We don't know what's going on with this Dalvin Cook thing, and so you can't drop Alexander Mattison right now. Because who knows where that will go. So, I think I agree. I'm probably going with Mooney, especially with the wide receiver depth that he has.
Yeah, you're never really going to start him over Cooper, Diggs, and Johnson anyway. Yeah. So that's kind of where I would go to get CEH back. Overall, the coloring, do you like the colors? Are they pretty?
They pop, and he's got beautiful handwriting.
You know what really stood out to me here was the W's. Like, the W's are legit.
Yeah, he's got a lot of like swoopy J's too.
Yeah,
like, that are real fancy.
They're fancy. Like,
fancy J's.
And that's why I said Godare instead of Goddard, because this dude is obviously so fancy that he's got to pronounce it Godare. I mean, it is.
This ain't no Joe Dirt here.
No, this ain't no Joe Dirt over here. This is some legit. Like, I feel like he, like, you know, sips a cocktail like as he holds his and he swirls his wine around. I mean, I feel like he's sitting probably in a red robe right now.
Yeah,
in a comfy chair, just, you know, sipping on gin and juice. No, not that. Something else. Like he's drinking an old fashioned or something right now is what I think is going on here for Matt Hanan. Overall, though, solid roster, Matt. We like it. Appreciate your submission here, and we look forward to doing those every single week, Ethan. But now is the time that we're going to dip in the mailbag here for a couple quick questions. First one, coming from Christian Mayanove. Christian is a mainstay in our live streams. So we see a lot of Christian there in our live stream. So he had a question here when I asked there on our community tab. He says, I ended up with both Kittle and Andrews. I want to start one of them in my flex. Would you start them both over Kenyon Drake or Antonio Gibson in the flex spot? So really, it's do we want to, you know, start two tight ends, or would you rather have a Drake or a Gibson in the lineup? Me personally, I would rather have Kittle and Andrews over, I was going to say over Gibson. I think they're a little bit safer. I don't mind Kenyon Drake anymore. I mean, ever since John Gruden has left, they've utilized him a lot more in the passing game. They've added Deshaun Jackson. That could take away a target or two from Kenyon Drake, but I still think Drake may be slightly safer here, in my opinion. But I don't mind starting both tight ends.
Yeah, I don't mind starting both tight ends either. If it's a tight end premium league, I feel a lot better about it. If it's PPR, I feel okay about it. You know, especially over Gibson. Yeah, I don't mind starting them both.
Now, obviously, Andrews has already played, so we don't know if he started him or not. And Andrews hasn't done a whole lot in this ball game so far. Only has 3 receptions for 39 yards. But when you look at the overall team, can you say that Antonio Gibson is going to go out there and be a lock for a lot more? I mean, we really don't know. So, I mean, a lot of it is boom or bust. I think if you've already started Andrews and you've started a little bit slower, you need to chase points a little bit. So I'm going to go for the guys that maybe have that boom opportunity and then go with Kittle. And then it's like eeny, meeny, miny, mo when it comes to Drake or Gibson.
Yeah.
So that's a rough call right there, because both those running backs, they're both capable of going out there and scoring 25 points. They're both also capable of going out and scoring 2.5 points. So
yeah, if I had to rank the 4 of them, I would have put Kittle and then probably Gibson and then Andrews and then Drake. But Gibson and Andrews are pretty, I mean, prior to what we already know, as far as what Andrews has done, they would have been right around the same, you know, expected points for me.
Right. All right. Next up, Justin Shook says, I drafted Saquon number 13 overall and feel pot committed. At what point, if any at all, am I reasonably justified to cut bait? So basically, he spent an early pick on Saquon Barkley. I'm guessing that's the first pick of the second round. I don't know the size of the league, but he's getting to the point where he's getting frustrated, Ethan. And I know they're on a bye this week, but do you feel good about Saquon Barkley coming back after the bye? And if he doesn't, and if he struggles again, that at some point you just, you cut bait, like he said. But right now, I don't think it's time for that. You've hung on to him at this point. You might as well wait until he comes back in a week or so and try to get whatever you can out of him.
Yeah, I mean, as far as you can't really cut him right now. I mean, you're not going to cut him at all. You can't cut Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
But I would say that if you're concerned about Saquon Barkley, the time to sell him is as soon as we know that he's about to play.
Yep.
As soon as we know he's active. And I've been saying for a few weeks now that I expect after this bye that we are going to see Saquon Barkley again. As soon as we have confirmation that he's playing, that's when I'm shopping him. Like, hey, he's coming back. Like, does anybody, because somebody is going to trust him more than you do. And so that's the best time to sell, because you're selling him on the what if, not what is. So the what if of Saquon is always going to be more than the what is, as long as he's dealing with these injuries. So that's when I would sell if it was me. But you can't cut him, and you can't really sell him right now.
Yep, exactly. Just wait, and if he's announced he's going to be good to go for week 11, that's your last opportunity to try to get something potentially for him if you don't want that headache anymore. Next up, Nick is a good backup running back that gets a fair share of action, who's playing a bad defense better than a running back one against a really good defense. Obviously, matchup matters, but how would you approach that? So basically, I'll use a scenario here. Well, let's say we have Tony Pollard in a great matchup going up against whoever, the Dolphins, whatever you want to say. It doesn't matter. Or you have an Antonio Gibson going up against Tampa Bay like this week. Are you okay with using that running back 2 on the Cowboys instead of the running back 1 on the Washington football team? Is kind of the scenario that I'm kind of thinking that he's hinting at right here.
Yeah, this is actually a really good question, but here's how I would approach this, and you can disagree with me if you don't think the same way. This is what I call getting cute with your fantasy decisions, and I don't like to get cute with my fantasy decision. And what I mean is trying to outsmart the system. There's a reason why an RB1 is an RB1, and it's because statistically, over time, over the course of the entire season, they are going to score more points than the majority of the running backs in the league. Yep. And so when you start to get cute about which matchups, here's the thing. We've seen teams go up against what we thought were really good matchups and still blow up. Good running backs can do that. Yep. And so I don't get cute when I'm talking about RB1s. Now, if you want to say, hey, should the backup running back, should I start looking at matchups when it comes to my RB3? I got one guy that's a locked-in starter versus maybe a guy like a James Conner when Chase Edmonds was healthy. Then we can have a discussion about it. But when you're talking about the questions is about an RB1, which is implying that it's one of the 12 best running backs in the league.
I think he's meaning an RB1 on any given team is how I'm reading it. Like he's saying say Zach Moss is out this week, the running back 1 for the Bills is going to be Devin Singletary. Do you like Devin Singletary because he's going to be their quote-unquote RB1 that game? Or would you rather have somebody like a Tony Pollard, a Naheem Hines, somebody else like that instead who's the number 2 on their own team but has a good matchup and gets their fair share of action? That's kind of how I read it.
Yeah, we read that differently. If you're interpreting it that way, then I'm probably playing the matchups a little bit more, but I'm still going to go with the guy that I think is going to get the most opportunity. So I'm probably still leaning the RB1, but it's at least a discussion.
Yep, exactly. That's where it becomes a little bit more matchup based, because like I said, you can't score points without touches. So I'm trying to find the guy that's going to get the most touches, because then he gets the most opportunities to score me fantasy points. So That's a good question. It all depends on exactly how you meant it. Let us know down below in the comment section which way you were looking there, Nick, and hopefully we answered your question. Last one here, Andrew Galvin. I'm 6-3, ranked number 2 in a Superflex PPR. My studs are Eckler, Cook, Hill, Kupp, Judy, and Goddard. The weak point of my team is the quarterbacks. I have Burrow and Tua. Would y'all attempt to trade for a higher quarterback? I hate trading my studs, but if it's the best thing to do, I will. Also not sure who to use for the trade. So it doesn't say if it's dynasty or not. It only says Superflex PPR. So I'm guessing we're only looking at this year. And if that's the case, I'm a lot more likely to make a trade, because I don't think that you're going to win with Burrow and Tua rest of season. So being that you're 6-3, you're going to have to try to maintain that somehow. I'm not trading Austin Eckler or Dalvin Cook. Like, that is not happening. You have Hill, Kupp, Judy, and Goddard. I don't know what your bench looks like, but if you have any depth at wide receiver, honestly, I'm not and this may sound crazy, depending on what you have behind them on the bench, I'm not opposed to shopping Tyreek Hill to see what I can get. Am I quick to give him away? Am I going to give him away for cheap? No. But name value wise, based off of current production we've seen in the struggles in that offense, I'm more likely to trade Tyreek Hill right now than I am to trade Cooper Kupp, even though they just brought in Odell Beckham. There was an interview with the Cleveland Browns safety Josh Johnson, who came from LA, and he even said, hey, that offense, it runs through Cooper Kupp in LA. Like, he is the guy in that offense, and that's not going to change with Odell Beckham. So I'm not moving Cooper Kupp. I'll do Tyreek Hill first. What about you? Depending on what the depth is on the bench, because I can't see that.
Yeah, and I think we're being a little generous when we say studs and put Dallas Goedert in there.
Right.
Tight end studs are not what they used to be, I guess. I would say that while I do think that Joe Burrow is not going to – the floor is lower than some of the other top quarterbacks. I mean, he's still a top 12 quarterback on the year.
He's good. He just needs a quarterback too.
His ceiling may not be like, Lamar Jackson level, but how much of an upgrade are you actually going to get? I mean, I'm just, because I was curious just at the numbers here. I went and looked it up, and right now he's a QB9. The difference between the QB9, I mean, he really is the teardrop. Because every quarterback above him, with the exception of one, is scoring a couple more fantasy points a game, average-wise. Unless you're trying to make a huge tier jump, which is basically Tom Brady or Lamar Jackson, they're the only two guys. Oh, and Josh Allen. So those are the three guys that are going to give you more than 3+ points difference per week. I don't think that's
but we really only need a quarterback too, because he really only needs his super flex, because I think Joe Burrow's fine as his quarterback 1. Yeah. He really only needs that quarterback 2. He needs that tier 2 guy. He needs a Kirk Cousins. He needs I'm trying to think of something right off the top of my head.
Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, like a safe weekly
Derek
option.
Carr, maybe.
Yes, something like that is where. Now, would I go out there and trade Tyreek Hill for Derek Carr? No, probably not. But, I mean, you have to try to find a team. The first thing, go to a team that has a third quarterback that is worth a crap, right? Because until you find who is available out there, it doesn't really matter what names we say. You have to find a team that has a quarterback sitting on its bench, because nobody's going to trade you one of their starting 2 quarterbacks. Find somebody with that third guy. And then you look at their overall roster and say, what does this team need that I could try to talk away a decent quarterback too. I mean, you don't have to go out there and get a Josh Allen. Like I said, you go out there and get a Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, something like that. You'd be fine for him being your quarterback too.
Yeah, and I would also say that I would be, if you haven't already, and I don't know how your team's waiver wires are set up, but Cam Newton could fill this slot for you. And so I would be aggressively bidding for Cam Newton. We know that he's probably going to be the starter, if not this week, most likely by next week.
Next week, yep.
Sometimes you don't have to make a huge splashy deal.
Yep.
Sometimes it just falls into your lap. So I would be aggressively trying to get Cam Newton. If I can't get Cam Newton, then I am going for somebody that at least is going to give me a little bit of upside that maybe is not as sexy of a name. Carson Wentz comes to mind. Teddy Bridgewater comes to mind. I know it's not sexy. Derek Carr, same thing, not sexy, but can give you a little bit. Matt Ryan, same type of deal. Those are the types of players that I'm targeting, because most likely there's somebody's QB3 or QB2 that they'd be willing to trade maybe not Cup or Hill or Cook or Eckler,
right?
But Judy and another person off your bench,
right?
To upgrade your quarterback spot.
Yep, exactly. Awesome, Andrew. Hopefully that helped make a couple decisions for your team there. And that was the mailbag, Ethan. So we've covered all the injuries. We've covered some show us your teams. We've dipped in the mailbag, all kinds of things. And we've been talking for about an hour now. So before we make this episode any longer today, we greatly appreciate the support. And if you could help us out, only thing we're asking for is to hit the like button down below. And if you enjoy the content, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you are updated every single week all throughout the year about all things NFL. So hopefully you enjoyed seeing Ethan with a bag on his head for a few minutes to start the show. I'm sorry I had to do it to you that way, my friend, but it is what it is. It is what it is at that point.
One of these years, Jake,
maybe
you will wear the bag. But this was not the year.
Not yet, my friend. But hey, hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, and we'll talk to you later.